My name's Tanya Clarke and I've been a member of the Croydon Film Society since I was 15, back in 1969, and it's been a really important part of my life. I can remember being 15 in the old Croydon Hall, where in winter we'd have our blankets over our knees, and it was interesting because I was always interested in other cultures. I was always interested in literature and books, and it was a chance to actually have really interesting film from countries overseas and getting an insight into what that was. And for me, that was really important because in those days, there virtually wasn't any cinemas that would have foreign language films. There wasn't the SBS. So it was, a chance to have an insight into other cultures. And that was really, really important to me, even as a young woman. I ended up doing an arts degree at Melbourne Uni and doing literature, but I've always been interested in film, and I can remember some of the films. There's been a few films that I think have actually changed my life in a way. I remember back in the very old Croydon Hall, seeing Partha Panchali, the book. It was an Indian film, just looking at the life of people in an Indian village and giving you insight into their way of life, the pace of life that they had. And it's just sort of triggered my interest in other cultures, for a long time. There's been other films like The Ballad of Narayama, which was so powerful and so confronting in a way. And what that film did for me was to put on its head the whole morality that we have, our Christian morality about what's sinful and what's not, when you saw this very small village in Japan that in order to survive they had to do certain practices, and they were the opposite of the sort of moral framework we have. But it made you see that you can't just see things from one perspective. You've got to kind of look at it from different perspectives. So I think that was a very powerful film for me as a young woman. And there's been other films over the years that have in some ways been pivotal in changes in my life. Another one that was very, very important was Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. And I was sort of at a crossroads in my life trying to make a decision about what to do about a relationship. And in that you saw the main protagonist actually living out his values, which caused his death in the end. And it felt to me after seeing that there's nothing more important than your integrity and the values that you hold, and that he was prepared to die for that. So in some ways that really impacted me in terms of the decision I had to make. Even if I had to give up somebody I loved, it would have been betraying my integrity and the values I had to continue with it. And so that film was quite pivotal in kind of changing, or impacting, influencing the course of my life. So for me, it's been a very important part of my life because I've been continuously going. I'm nearly 72. I've been going since I was 15. And there's something, I know there's a lot of films now on SBS, but there's something about a shared community of people sitting together watching a film on a big screen in a theatre that's still very powerful and that's important. And so I look forward to every second Monday to come along, and even if the films are challenging and mightn't be ones you've chosen, they are always thought-provoking, and I often spend time thinking about them the next day and what I've learnt from that, what it's exposed, the issues that are in it. So for me, who's a fairly analytic person, I love thinking about and analysing the films afterwards, Back in the old days when I was only 15, they used to have shorts at the beginning of the main feature, and they were interesting as well. And I remember being sad when they cut those shorts out because there were some very interesting short films you got exposed to as well, which you don't often see either. So, so for me it's been a very important and integral part of my life, of opening up the world, of helping me make decisions at critical points. And of course there's always the joyful films like Sunshine on Leith and other films. I mean, there's seriousness in that too, but other films that are just pure joy. Paddison, there's been a number of films that have stayed with me, and sometimes I've gone and bought the DVD so I could watch it again. So, you know, Betty Jope was alive and would introduce the films way back then when I joined, and I just feel very grateful that there were people who had that vision to allow access to great films, foreign language films, especially in the outer suburbs. I just feel very grateful for the people and for Betty Jope for actually, you know, putting this in place and for it to have such longevity for 70 years, because it's been an important part of my life, yeah.